Hey everybody, it's Xavier with Extraordinary Athletes. We got Q&A today with me, and I'm ready to get it started. What were some struggles that you faced while on your journey to the big leagues? I would say some of the biggest struggles that I faced is just the day-to-day grind and the day-to-day knowing that you're gonna fail. There was a specific point when I was in AA, I remember playing in Northwest Arkansas, having gone 0 for my last 12 with maybe 8 strikeouts. Obviously, this was a disappointing time in my career. My goals are to be a Major League Baseball player, a Major League star at that. So I had to remember that, hey, times are gonna be tough. Ultimately, I remember myself crying on the bus thinking, is this really what I'm meant out to be? Is this really what I'm supposed to be, a Major League ball player? And I remember guys were listening to their music and on the bus and watching movies, and I was just sitting there with tears, disappointed because I hadn't been doing what I knew I was capable of doing. So those are some of the biggest struggles that I've had, is just the personal failure. But ultimately, I feel like you get the opportunity to learn with your failures. You learn to get over your struggles and hurdles and keep striving after your dream and achieving your goals. What advice would you give to a young athlete who desires to play their sport at the highest level? My advice to that young athlete would be to take a piece of advice from everybody. Learn from everybody that you come in contact with. I specifically remember for me going to school at UNLV, Las Vegas, there was a time when I was really struggling. I had felt like I was an amazing player, but at the same time I had struggled for the past few weeks. I started off the season super hot, hitting home runs back-to-back days. I remember even the place, I was at Pepperdine in California, started off hot. But then I remember not playing for a few weeks after struggling, and I remember one day after practice, my coach he saw me kind of with my head down and said, "Hey, X, what's going on?" I said, "Man, I just know I'm capable of doing so much more. I'm capable of being a better player." He said, "X, remember that sometimes you take a step back to take a step forward." And that ultimately stayed with me for a long period of time, even until this day. It reminded me that failure is gonna happen on our way to success, especially in the game of baseball. But not just baseball, every athletic sport, every career that we go through, there's gonna be some failure. So it reminded me to keep moving forward. It reminded me that the dream and the goal is not over after one day of failure. So ultimately, I kept going, and you know where the story ends. Who did you look up to as a young athlete, or who did you try to emulate your game after growing up? I think the two guys that I looked up to the most growing up was Gary Sheffield and Tony Gwynn. Gary Sheffield, because he had such a vicious swing and attacked the ball at all times, and he made pitchers always feel like they were scared of him. I ultimately always wanted that to be me one day. So I even tried to emulate the click in his bat and just how he was so vicious at the plate. Tony Gwynn, because I grew up in San Diego, I got to watch the San Diego Padres a lot. Just loved his game, just the smoothness of his swing. You always heard about how his work ethic was at the top, always working on his swing off the tee. So it was important for me to make sure that I got off the tee. If I wanted to be like Tony Gwynn and be as consistent as a player as that, I wanted to make sure that I was getting off the tee, that I was getting my swings in every day, and that I wasn't average. I wanted to be great. So I always wanted to keep working hard and do the things that some of the big leaguers did in order for me to get to the next level. What advice do you have for a high schooler who's struggling in school, but he is a great athlete? First off, I think that's a great question. A lot of times as athletes, it's hard for us to focus on our school because we know we have to spend a lot of time on our sport. But I think this is where we try to recognize our priorities. In order for us to be eligible as a player in high school, college, we have to have our GPA in order. We have to have our school come first. That's why we say you're a student athlete. Student is first over athlete. So you want to make sure that you're taking care of the business off the field or off the ice, off the court, whatever it may be. You want to make sure your priorities are straight. Get the classwork, get the homework done first, and then have as much time as you can have for yourself after that. And you have more time to focus on your craft. You have more time to focus on excelling and being the best that you can be. Who was the biggest influence or mentor you had growing up? The biggest influence for me and mentor for me was my father. It was cool to see him get up, go to the gym, go to work, come back after work, be willing to work with me on all my skills with football, basketball, baseball, also dedicate time to coaching our team, whether that be Little League, travel. So it was ultimately the best being able to see him never complain about having to put in so much time and effort to help me or to work and be with the family. So I've tried to make it a point to do the same thing for my family. I have 2 kids, 2 boys. I try to do the same thing, to be there physically, mentally, whatever it may be. So it's cool to see the way my father went about things, and I want to be able to do the same for my family. What are some of the things that you do to get pumped up mentally before the game? Before the game, I love to listen to music. I love to watch motivational YouTubes, and I love to watch documentaries on legends, the people that are most successful in their game. I feel like that kind of gets me going before the game, gets me excited, reminds me why I'm doing it, to be the best ultimately. I want to be the best at everything that I do. So the music kind of relaxes me, but the YouTubes and the motivational speaking from some of the legend and the top in the game, it keeps me locked in and reminded that, hey, the focus is being the best. The focus is almost being perfect. I know it's impossible to be perfect, but to just strive for that. So that's what I love to do before the game. What are your biggest goals, dreams, and aspirations today? My biggest goals, dreams, and aspirations today have mostly to do with passing along all the information that I've learned along my journey. I want to be able to strengthen people's mental performance, especially young athletes. I feel like they need the most because they're able to influence at a young age. They're going to continue to be influences. So I want to be able to provide them with as much as I can. I want to be able to tell them how to deal with failure, how to be able to discipline yourself, how to be able to succeed in life. And also not to just succeed with their sport, to be able to succeed outside of their sport. That's ultimately what I'm trying to do with Extraordinary Athletes. I love reading your blog on theincrease.com. What encourages you to continue to write? I don't know why I love to write so much. It has always kind of seemed to be a passion. Even dating back, there was a time when I remember not really liking to write. I remember at a young age, my mom, she made me write a journal or a diary. And I wasn't too excited about it because at that time I didn't like writing. I think I started writing my journal at age 7 or 8. She even gave me the amount of sentences I needed to write. And I remember it was a struggle to get to sentence 29 or 30. But I noticed that I was able to get a lot of stuff on paper that I wasn't able to talk about, or feelings and emotions on paper that I wasn't really expressing. When I was able to get those feelings and emotions down on a piece of paper, imagination just started running wild. I was able to convey my stories in a really cool way, and that's what I like to do now. I like to just tell stories, maybe past experiences, today's experiences, and what I want to look forward in the future. Just love getting emotions and feelings out there on paper. What do you say to young athletes who may not have a father figure in their life? I would say to that person that they should try to lean on as many mentors and family members as possible. Try to soak up as much information as they can and learn what they can through those people. Everybody doesn't learn everything through one person. So take as much advice, take as much as you can from every single person that you come across. Even if it's not so good things, remember to not use those things. If you see somebody doing something that you know is not gonna be successful use in your own life, try to remember that, hey, that's not the way to go about it. So to that person, continue to use every little piece from everybody that you have. And yeah. What do you remember about your first call up to the show? Man, that first call up to the show, I just remember being super tired. I remember them telling me that I was going to Milwaukee and I was gonna be playing the next day, the night before, and I just wasn't able to sleep. I was just dreaming about my first at bat, dreaming about my first ground ball, dreaming about just the fans in the stands. So ultimately when I got to the stadium, that Milwaukee Brewers stadium that first day, I was so tired, my eyes could barely stay open. I remember my manager at the time, Mike Matheny, coming up to me and saying, hey, X, you're gonna be in there today. You're in the lineup. I was anxious, I was nervous, I won't lie. I had the jitters, and I just remember just being so excited because my brother was in the stands, my wife was in the stands. It was an opportunity to show them that my dream had come true. It was an opportunity to show friends and family from back home that I had made it. I had accomplished my goal and my dream is coming true. So it was the most exciting moment in my whole career. Just that first day, that first at bat, I remember everything so vividly and to a T. I remember that it wasn't the game that I wished that I had because I went 0 for 4 or 0 for 3, but I remember having my shot and knowing that nobody was gonna take it away from me. How do you deal with failure in sports and in life? I think failure in sports is very similar to failure in life. I think you have to change your mindset and remember that failure also breeds success at some point. You're gonna go through those setbacks, you're gonna go through those hurdles, you're gonna go through struggles, but ultimately I think you have to change your mindset. My mindset is always remembering what I know success is. Everybody's success is totally different. So in life, for me, success is being the right foundation for my family, showing them what hard work looks like, showing them that I'm capable of doing anything that I put my mind to. I want my kids to know that, and I want my wife to know that. So people who look up to me, they see that I'm a good influence and I can show them that. And that's the same for sports, recognizing what I know what success is and ultimately continuing to take those steps to success. Success is a long process. It's never gonna be straightforward. You're never gonna get right to the point of success. So with that process, there's gonna be setbacks. You're gonna take a step back, but you're always going forward. You're always gonna be moving forward. Always gonna remember why you started from the first place and then get there. How did going to play in Korea come about? Going to play in Korea came about in a crazy way. I had just gotten done playing with the Miami Marlins, and I was a free agent at the time. I was hoping to get an opportunity to play with another major league team. My agent called me, said, "Hey, Xavier, we got an opportunity to go to Korea." I said, "Go where? I'm not going to Korea. I don't know anything about Korea." I knew a little bit about Japan at the time. I knew baseball was huge over in Japan, so I thought that might be a good opportunity. But going to Korea never crossed my mind. I told my agent, "No, I'm not doing that. Let's see what we got going on here in the United States or Japan." I thought about it for a couple weeks. I realized that Korea baseball is huge over there as well. I started researching YouTube, started seeing who was over there. I noticed another player had been over there, Eric Thames, came back to the United States and got a pretty good contract. He also had played really well over there. So then I thought, hey, that might be a good opportunity for me. Reached back out to my agent, asked him, "Hey, do you think we could recontact the team, the NC Dinos at the time? Can we call the Dinos and see if that availability is still there for me to play?" He said, "Probably not there, but I'll reach out to them." Luckily, they called back and said, "Hey, we still have an opportunity." This is when I told my wife that the Dinos from Korea are gonna sign me. I told her that I was gonna do it and I needed her to be a part of the journey. She cried, slapped me in my face. She told me she didn't wanna go. But we prayed about it, we talked about it, we really talked to our family about it more, and this was an experience of a lifetime, an opportunity for us to get ahead in life, financially and just experience-wise. I wanted to dive into that culture. I wanted to experience something totally new and play baseball at a whole new level in a different country. So ultimately, she got on board after a few weeks of crying together and laughing together and figuring out what we're gonna do with our life. We got the opportunity and we went over there and never looked back. We loved it, and glad we had the 2 years of experience over there. What was the transition like going to the KBO and playing baseball in Korea? The transition was something else. It was something that's indescribable. It was cool at a certain point because I was diving into a whole new experience, a whole new culture, and I was excited about that. But at another point, I was diving into a culture I knew nothing about. I had to go there and I needed a translator 24/7. I didn't know what any of the characters on the road said or on restaurants or certain buildings. It's different here because, say if I were to go to Mexico or Dominican, they still have the same alphabet. Over there, it's characters, so you have no idea what their alphabet is saying. You could be looking at a restaurant or thinking it's a restaurant and it's a business building, or vice versa. So I had no idea what I may be going into at a restaurant. It may be pork or it may be beef, and I have no idea. So that transition was a little tough. But the transition as far as baseball was easy for me. It was fun because baseball had always been something that I have always done, something I've always been passionate about, something I've always loved. So it was easy for me to kind of dive in there with a lot of those guys and just have fun with it. Ultimately, it's a game, it's a sport, you gotta have fun. But the transition was on and off the field were two totally different things. On the field was an easier transition because it was baseball. I was able to have fun with the players, with the coaches, and they really understood my personality. Off the field was a little tougher. I had to pick up things a lot quicker than I thought I was gonna be able to. But ultimately, I was able to dive into the culture, learn as much as I could, and have a lot of fun. What was a moment that you found yourself lost in translation in Korea? There was a specific time I remember being in the locker room with another player, his name Na Sung-bum. He had a bat and he was trying to hand me his bat at the time. And I didn't understand what he was saying in Korean, so he tried to type it in the translation. I looked at the translation and it said, "Will you kill your bat so I can give it to my brother?" I was so confused at the time. I had no idea what he was saying. My translator wasn't next to me, so I didn't know where he was. He wasn't able to translate it. So we kept battling, going back and forth, trying to ask him. I was trying to ask him, how do I kill a bat? What, do you want me to break the bat over my knee? Do you want me to break the bat outside and give you both sides of the bat? I didn't understand what he was saying. Later on, the translator came into the clubhouse and told me he wanted me to sign my bat to give it to him so he could give it to his brother who collected bats and autographs. What was the most embarrassing moment or a funny story that you have about coming up to the big leagues? I remember there was a moment when I had just got called up to the big leagues for the second time with the St. Louis Cardinals. I remember I wasn't in the starting lineup, so I was trying to get a workout in the gym. I remember specifically being on the elliptical, just getting a little warm up in, sweating up a little bit. And the manager comes in, Mike Matheny at the time, saw me working on the elliptical and said, "Hey, X, I need to talk to you." I said, "Okay, well, let me towel off real quick, dry off, and I'll meet you in your office." He said, No, just stay up there on the elliptical. And I figured it might not be good. He said, "Xavier, we're gonna be sending you back down to the minor leagues. We have another player that's coming off the DL." And I just remember thinking how disappointed I was because I had just gotten to the big leagues for the second time. I was excited. I remember thinking, man, I must be chopped liver for me to just be up on this elliptical and them just to say, "Hey, just real quick, hey, go get back to the minor leagues." So I was disappointed, but at the same time, I just remember thinking, man, this is such a business. But you know, everybody goes through it. It was a lesson that I learned that just because you're at one place or you feel high on your horse doesn't mean you can't get knocked right back down, especially with baseball. You have your highs and lows all the time, but luckily I was able to go back up later on that year and played really well. Is routine important to you, and what does yours look like? I think a routine is super important. I think it's important because it reminds you that consistency is how you're going to make it to where you want to be. It reminds you that you have priorities and you need to schedule those priorities. As a baseball player and as a position player, hitting was always super important for me. So I always wanted to get to the field early and make sure I got in the cage when nobody else was in the cage, and I was able to just go through some thoughts or some feelings that I had from the game before. Even I would hit sometimes without the hitting coach, just because I knew that his input may distract a little bit of what I'm trying to feel. And then after feeling my own feelings, I would go to the hitting coach and say, "Hey, this is what I feel like I need to work on." And I would allow him to give feedback to me. I think it's important for us to build a routine towards our end goal and where we're trying to go. I think a routine is important because you want to try to do it day to day. You want to make sure that it's not something that you're doing one day and then you forget about. No, a routine is something that you have to do every day. So for me as a hitter, I know I need to get in the cage, get off the tee, then maybe get some flips, and then get off the machine. And then I was able to go to the coach and say, "Hey, what can we work on today?" Or what did I do wrong last night that we can work on today? That's a little bit of an example on the field or in the batting cage. But as a player, throughout a whole day, you want to make sure your routine is similar. You want to make sure you're getting up early, make sure you're getting the right food in you. Nutrition is huge, especially as a professional athlete. But even as a young athlete, you need to make sure you're eating right. Your diet habits are correct. Especially when you have school, you want to make sure that you're not going through the day of school just dragging. You want to make sure that you're getting the right food. You want to make sure that you're attacking the day in the right way. What is your why or your motivation? What pushes you or drives you? My faith pushes me every day. Knowing that I have something greater to live for every day is what really motivates me. What motivates me is to be a foundation and a light for my family and for others around me. I want them to see me as an influence and as a positive influence. Today we have so many so-called influencers, but are they really being positive? So for me, it's important to be a positive influence to those people around me and the people that are seeing me walk daily this life. If you could go back and tell high school X one thing, what would it be? I would tell high school X to just learn as much as possible. Don't be afraid of asking questions. I feel like when I was a little younger, I was apprehensive or a little nervous to ask questions, whether that be my coaches, my teachers, my mentors. But that's ultimately how you learn how to soak up information. Read more books. I would tell myself to read more books. Tell myself to read books about everything, even things that I don't like. Because the more that you learn about things, the more that you're able to really optimize success down in the future. I feel like I would tell high school X to not be afraid. Not be afraid of doing things out of your comfort zone or things that you're not really comfortable doing. I would tell him to attack those things and attack them strong. Be willing to learn at all costs and be willing to really strive for everything that you want. Don't hold anything back. What would you say are some of the most important attributes that separate an extraordinary athlete from an average one? I think a few things separate an extraordinary athlete from an average one. I think it's leading people, loving people, and how they view success. I think you have to view success differently than most people because I think success is just one spot a lot of people try to strive towards. But I think success is a journey. It's a process. So understanding that you're gonna fail at some points. You have to change the view of your success, change your mindset. Also, how you love people. You can't just care about yourself. You can't be selfish. You have to learn to love other people and care about what they think. For example, if you're a teammate and you see a teammate is struggling or you see something's going on outside of the game, you see them maybe emotionally sad, or don't be afraid to go up to them and say, hey, what's going on, man? It may not have anything to do with the field, but for you to show them love or show them that you care, that's another thing that separates you from being an average athlete. Also, being a leader. You have to lead others. You have to show that you're a good influence on others. You have to show them the right way to go about things. And that starts with leading yourself, making sure that you're going about things the right way on and off the field. Make sure that you're learning how to be a leader and making those steps toward making an impact on other people. What is the importance of practice and preparation? Practice and preparation are huge. Preparation starts with the mind. Your mindset has to be right before you even start any goal or action. You want to be able to tell yourself what the goal is and why you're striving after it. You want to be prepared for practice. You want to be prepared for the game. You want to be prepared for any little activity that has to do with your sport. For me, practice is repetition. You want to continue to get the reps to perfect your game. You want to make sure that you're doing the hard work when you're with your coaches or when you're with your team, but you also want to be doing that work outside of that. You want to be putting in the extra time, the extra effort, and you want to make sure practice isn't just something that you're doing just to run through the motions. You want to have a purpose behind it. You want to be locked in, you want to be focused. This is what's going to help you excel to the next level. How do you find rest, relaxation, and recovery? I find rest, relaxation, and recovery through a lot of different things, starting with music. I like to relax listening to music. It helps take my mind off of certain things. Especially as an athlete, you kind of just want to relax and turn off sometimes. Relaxation comes from just sleep. I love to sleep. That's huge for recovery. I understand the beating that we take as athletes every day. We need to recover. Also, recovery has a lot to do with your nutrition, how you eat. Make sure you're eating the right way and that your diet is on point. Relaxation, rest, and recovery will always be important for an athlete. Those things will also separate you from being great to extraordinary. If you weren't a baseball player, what would you be doing? I think if I wasn't a baseball player, I would be an actor. I remember in high school, I loved drama class. I loved being a part of the drama plays. I loved just having fun and reading script and changing the script around to my own style. And now I see actors today like Denzel Washington, Will Smith, a lot of guys that I love just watching and how they just turn a story into an experience and make you feel like you're in the movie. So I would love to be doing that if I wasn't a baseball player. This has been Q&A with Xavier of Extraordinary Athletes. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time. X out.